Now what we want to do is check the wiring harness to the camshaft sensor. There's the wiring harness right here. It goes into the main engine harness, goes across the front cover and goes down. So what I want to do is go ahead and take the duct off here. It just basically unsnaps from our air box, and that'll allow me to get to the plugs on the other end. And there's our camshaft sensor right down here. Okay, so what I want to do is disconnect the plug. This has got a spring clip. It's like a little wire, and pull it straight up. There we are. Okay, there's the connector for the camshaft sensor. This is a 3-wire sensor, so it's going to have ground, voltage, and then the return, or the sensor wire to the computer. Now this is one end of the harness right here where it's going on to our sensor. What I want to look for is any kind of corrosion inside of the sensor. Now one way to determine if you have corrosion or not is it'll be like a greenish tint to it. If you look inside there, you can see like an orangish color seal. You want to make sure that's in place. That stops moisture from getting into that connection. With my sensor being exposed now, same thing there. I want to look at my terminals, make sure none of them are bent. Sometimes you'll actually see a terminal will be broken off, so there's no way that it's going to work correctly. With this disconnected, my wiring harness goes across the front over here and over here to these 3 plugs. Now what I want to do next is go ahead and take my power steering reservoir out of the way. Then I go and disconnect these 3 plugs. This is really nice because it does have this breakout feature, because what I can do, I can go to our cam sensor connector and actually probe one terminal of the cam sensor connector with an ohm meter and come over here to our plugs and probe that connection here, and that'll tell me if there's any resistance in the wire. Now why is that important? Because the engine's mounted in rubber and the wiring harness is pretty much fixed to the engine. That means it's stationary. But there's a loop down there where the harness goes from the engine to the body of the vehicle. In that loop, there's a good chance that that could be broken. So this test that we're about ready to do will determine whether or not we have a problem with the wiring harness from the connectors to our sensor. Okay, there's our 3 wiring harness connectors. This is the engine side of the harness, and that's where we want to do our test. So what I want to do, take our DVOM again, put it on ohms scale, and we're not going to read voltage, we're actually going to read continuity. That's going to tell us whether or not we have a break in our wire or any resistance in the wire. So we take one end of the DVOM and we'll probe this terminal. You want to be careful you don't damage the terminal when you probe it, because then we'll create a new problem. Now this is where the all data came in handy. It told me that on this green plug here, and I'm looking at this, and I'm looking for a blue wire. As a matter of fact, that would be my wire right there. It's right next to this yellow wire. So what I want to do, I want to go to the terminal side of the connector, and I'm just going to touch that, probe that, and if you look at our meter, we're showing 0 resistance in this wire, so this wire is in good condition. Now this is from this terminal to the terminal on the camshaft sensor. I'm going to do the same thing with the other 2 terminals. So the same thing, I'll probe the second terminal. Be careful not to bend the terminal, there we go. And we'll come over to our harness. Okay, if we turn our connector over, we've got the blue, we've already checked that connection, the yellow, and now we've got the red wire. That is the wire we want to check. So the same thing, we go inside of our connector body and just touch that terminal. And again, we have no resistance at all in that connection, so that circuit is also good. Okay, our final circuit, okay, this is our 3rd and final connection. We've got it probed. And now we skipped colors of plugs. The first 2 we checked were on the green connector. Now we're going to go to the black connector, and we're looking for a yellow wire. As a matter of fact, it's right next to a black and a yellow. You see the black and yellow, and we have the yellow. It should be this connection right here. So the same thing. We touch the terminal of the connector, and there we are. Okay, all 3 circuits coming out to the camshaft sensor are good. Now this is from this connection to our plug connection. Now the wiring harness going to the processor or the computer would be checked basically the same way. You'd go to the connectors, the female connectors out here, and onto the processor plug. Well, the wiring to the processor, the computer inside, everything in there checks out fine. So basically, I don't have a problem in the wiring harness at this time. The next thing to do now is to put all of the connectors back together, basically reassemble the engine compartment, and then I want to go back inside and I want to go ahead and clear the fault codes. And there we have it. You know, the thing is, so far we really haven't found anything that caused our code to set on this. But there's a good chance, just with our testing here, just disconnecting the connectors and putting the connectors back in, that may have even corrected our problem, as odd as that may sound. The thing to do now is we'll clear the codes, and if the light should return back on and we check it and that same code appears, then we'll have to go back into this again. If that would happen, I would suspect now that we would have a faulty sensor. The thing of it is, you just don't want to go ahead and automatically replace the sensor at this point, especially on a vehicle like this, because basically you're going to do the same thing as you would do to replace the timing belt. And if you do that without knowing for sure that you've got a problem with it, that'd be a waste of your time and also a waste of money. The nice feature of the code reader is it not only reads the codes for us, it can also erase the codes. Let's say that we did find a problem, we repaired it, you'd want to clear the codes. Well, the same thing with the intermittent. We can go ahead and clear the codes, test drive the vehicle, see if the check engine light comes back on. If it does, we can reattach the code reader and find out which codes returned. The same connector we were at before, we reconnect. It's going to link to the onboard computer, just asking us whether or not we want to erase the codes. So we want to select yes. Okay, the erase is done. The next step is to go ahead and unplug our code reader and test drive the vehicle. As with any job, to do it right, you'll need the right tools. The nice thing is that jobs today don't require a large, expensive assortment. Basic hand tools are generally all you'll need. In case where a specialty tool is required, be sure to check with AutoZone's Loan a Tool program. They have many specialty tools that can help you complete your job a lot quicker and easier. The first things you'll need are a socket set and a repair manual for your specific vehicle. You may also need screwdrivers or pliers to remove some components.
Be cautious when working under the hood. If the engine has been running, components will be extremely hot, so be careful what you touch. When working around a running engine, it is important to be alert and never wear loose clothing or a necktie that can get tangled in belts, pulleys, or the fan. If you have to lift the vehicle, never work under it until it has been secured with wheel blocks and securely positioned on jack stands. A hydraulic jack alone is never enough. And always remember to wear your safety glasses.
AutoZone.
Get the entire DVD for this repair and all other procedures covered in the Complete Car Care series at your local AutoZone store.